Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
I was trying to make a tree analogy because he's so tall and handsome, but he's back, actor and comedian Miguel Rivas.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Okay, everybody, because it is Earth Day, it is a day to celebrate. And of course, it's a day to celebrate the planet, but it's also a reminder of what exactly is at stake. And that is a growing concern for many young people. There was a recent survey in the Journal of Climate Change and Health, and it surveyed 1,000 young people right across Canada and found that more than half reported feeling afraid, sad, anxious, and powerless about climate change. So we decided, how do you discuss something as big and consequential as climate change and crisis that we're in with kids? With kids. How do we do that?
Well, I actually have this web series that I make with a not-for-profit called Hot Globe, and the idea behind it was to do comedy about climate change, because kids, we all heard about climate change as we became adults and tried to figure out how we're going to fix this into our lives. What are we going to do? If you grew up with climate change existing, it's a nightmare, right? It's so scary. So we got to teach kids to not be afraid anymore and to not think that it's over. There's still more to be done. So that's what our web series does, is it just tries to use comedy to highlight the absurdity of it and things that people can do to make changes, and that there are still things to do.
Yeah. Keep going.
I mean, I'm presuming that you've then shared this with your kids?
Yeah, it's more aimed at teenagers than young kids. My 5-year-old will be like, I don't care about this.
I mean, I think that's
You should care.
Right?
Yeah. That's how I talk to my son.
I mean, I might be an outlier here, but I haven't talked about climate change specifically with Jaya, and he's 11 years old, almost 12.
Is there a reason why?
Well, because I feel like he doesn't need any more anxiety in his life. Everywhere we turn these days, there's no reason why kids should feel depressed and anxious about the state of the earth. So it's not to say that I would avoid it if he came to me, and we of course talk about recycling and we talk about turning the lights off. There are things we talk about, but I'm not sitting around every day as a household being like, here's what you need to do. Partially because I also think it shouldn't be on his shoulders to fix things. This is an adult problem to fix. And putting it on these kids to be like, well, the next generation needs to fix this, seems like us, being like, well, we couldn't figure it out, you figure it out. It's like, no, we actually are the ones who have the most power and control and agency.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. This story actually reminds me of someone that I think a lot of us know, and that's Greta Thunberg. Remember that young woman, the Swedish young woman who became an activist? There she is. 2018, she sat outside her parliament demanding that they change things to protect the environment. And I think what most people don't know, I watched a documentary called I Am Greta. And what I knew as a newscaster was that she did all of these wonderful things that brought a lot of awareness. What I didn't know was before she became an activist, she was actually triggered by a project that was done in her classroom. And that led to depression. That triggered a realization of the severity of climate change. She lost 22 pounds in 2 months. She stopped talking and attending school. And then finally, after about a year and a half, her father says she came out of it, and then that triggered her, her movement, her activism.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about the information we give these children, how much, and I guess it depends on child to child, and it depends on the parents and the school board, but just knowing how that affected her so much, it made me think, I'm like, we didn't have to deal with this as kids.
Yeah.
And we have to be mindful that they are still children, and we have to maybe spoon feed them and maybe give it to them in bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
As to your point, you don't want to burden your kids. The idea of a child losing 22 pounds scares me and makes me
It is
anxious.
such a different time, isn't it, than what we grew up. I will say, I don't know that talking to kids about climate change and the crisis is going to be that much different. I mean, it's going to be different, but not that much different than how we approach it as adults. The way that I look at it is there's one of two ways that people try to enact people or get people activated about the environment. Number one is by fear.
Yeah.
We see the wildfires, we see the floods, and then, the news cycle doesn't help. But we hear about, endangered species. We're losing so many species. So there's the fear, and then you go, oh my God, I got to do something to save the planet. Or you can do it with, hey, here are some success stories, so keep going and do it in a way that feels right, which is focus on the small rather than the big, because we feel very powerless when it's something so big. What is stuff that we can do in our own community? And then highlight the people and the places where things are going right. For example, in British Columbia, the humpback whale, it was hunted almost out of existence, and there was a moratorium on whaling. Guys, great news, out in British Columbia, the humpback whale population is rebounding because of human action. That's a win. the other parts that we feel powerless about when we always think, well, there's big countries and they're polluting so much. What's my paper straw gonna do if a whole country is spewing fossil fuels? And it's like China, for example, huge polluter we know, they are making huge strides in solar and wind power. And finally, have you heard about the Great Green Wall of Africa? This is a project between 11 and 20 countries right across the continent are actually planting trees, bushes, shrubs to not only stop desertification of the Sahara, look what it looks like.
Cool.
And they're trying to protect arable land that you can actually use for farming because desertification is eating up 30 miles of African continent every year. So guess what? People are doing things, so keep going. It's working.
That's a good point. Make it positive.
Make it positive.
Make it positive.
Yeah.
That's a good
Okay.
point.
We're going to move on to this. We're going to rewind the clock a little bit because a recent YouGov survey looked into how Americans viewed their high school days. And 54% say that if they could go back in time, they would do it all again. So I know. We know how our audience feels. But I'm curious on this panel, would you go back to relive high school if you could?
Okay, I get this. Unfortunately, high school is not a great experience for a lot of people, but I loved it and I crushed high school. So yes, I would do it again. I'll tell you why I would do it again. Was there challenges? Of course. I don't think it's life and being a teenager. It's just challenging. But I really loved it. I loved it because
What did you love?
I loved school.
I'm just asking, like, what did
I
you
loved
love?
school.
Yeah.
I graduated with a 98% average. Like, okay.
That's something.
I know, Keener. Hey,
I was like, oh, the Keener's here.
You were the person who was bullying me in high school.
No, I was never a bully. Never a bully. I'm glad you brought that up because I had many friends. I was never bound to just one group of friends. I think maybe that's why my high school experience was really great. I was the girl who could jump around to so many groups, and I was the one who would stop bullies in their tracks, and I just had confidence. So shout out to my parents. It's not about me. Shout out. So yes, I would go back.
High school wasn't great for me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to the severe cystic acne and mutton chops decision that I made for 2 years.
No.
You know, you get your first facial hair, you want to experiment. It was a terrible, failed experiment. And I don't want to go back there now because of social media. That's what kind of would scare me right now. Maybe back in time to when I was in high school, I could redo. Because I also feel like designing my own curriculum, I sort of skirted around learning anything about science or math. I found out woodwork counted as a science class, so I was like, I'll do woodwork.
Yeah.
But now when people talk about science and math, I'm like, oh no, I'm so dumb. No, I think I should go back to high school.
I mean, I don't remember anything from high school except for some makeout sessions with some hippie boys that I would really like to do again.
All right.
Mutton chops,
I
baby?
wouldn't get into the mutton chops. I just feel like I would go back to my time of university. I'm the same thing. I wouldn't do it now with social media.
I'm indifferent. I was fine in high school. I had friends, blah, blah, blah. But the only reason I would go back is the best part of my high school time was I was in a co-ed cheerleading group. And that was in my first year. I made friends. I loved it. We competed in the U.S. And then later on, I found out that, you know what? They have cheerleading scholarships.
Yes.
All right. I found that out later. I was like, I'm going back to high school just so that I can apply for that free ride. I had no idea. So I would go back for that one reason.
You're triggering a memory that I just had this morning, too, that I think back to myself in my high school experience, and there wasn't a lot of guidance. Like, there was very few, there wasn't a lot of that kind of, like, I see you, and even though you're not doing well necessarily in this subject, I can tell that you have this skill set. I hope that that's changed. I'm going to guess that it maybe hasn't, but I'm hoping that it has changed.
Interesting.
To, like, just make sure that
Maybe
you
that's why we have all that anxiety about high school. Out there just trying to figure it out and no one really telling us or giving us like, okay, maybe you'll be good at this. Maybe the woodworking, you can become a carpenter and build houses.
Yeah.
Maybe
But no one
go
told
to the
you
barber and get like
anything.
I would have just followed Mel around. That would have been my guy.
I would have led you to good places. Not behind the portable with this one. So anyway, I'm just kidding.
No, you nailed it. I'm not embarrassed of it.
Okay.
Yeah, done.
Someone wrote to Vox for advice saying they've been avoiding political news lately to spare their mental health. But I know a lot of people agree with that, right? But they're feeling guilty about it because they know apathy and inaction won't change things. So how do you manage your news consumption?
It's an interesting
That's a
question.
big
I
question.
avoid the 24-hour news cycle at all costs. I think it's actually part of the problem that has led to the state that we're in right now, where all of us are feeling anxious as per our last conversation, and all of us feel so divided. What I do to manage my news consumption is I choose very carefully a couple of podcasts that I listen to, and I also like to read my news. So those are the two places that I feel like I consume it the best. They're usually longer form, they're more thoughtful, and that helps me stay tapped in, but I can sort of control what I'm taking
So it's
in.
not a fire hose.
Exactly,
of information.
exactly. And that feels good for me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think one thing you could do is don't model your life after my life, where you consume news constantly. I do a lot of political comedy, so I feel like I have to be super informed about everything. But then I find I just get like crazy burnout random days where I'm just agitated and I don't know why. But I think limiting consumption is important, but you got to be a little bit aware.
Yeah.
And I think
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
And I think a key thing you can do there is also make sure that you consume news from different sources. If you're always watching one channel, especially a 24-hour news channel, you're going to be, you're going to get this one source and it's going to overwhelm you. You can watch things that you don't even agree with necessarily if you use a critical eye.
That makes me
I was
angry,
gonna say, I'm like, I don't know about that one.
But
I get what you're
you got to
saying.
step outside of your
It's
bubble,
hard.
right? That will give you
Yeah.
context that might actually take down the anxiety.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I think you just made Cynthia anxious.
Well, I did that. I watched Fox News briefly when I was on a trip recently, and it made me, because the thing that I was watching specifically was absolutely hate inspiring.
Yeah.
It was hate inspiring.
Yeah.
It was designed to do that.
I guess the thing we have to remember is that it's a privilege to be able to even unplug. And I say that because if the news doesn't impact you directly, you have the privilege to unplug because you can. There's a lot of people that this news is hitting, sometimes the most vulnerable people. They do not have the luxury to say, the news doesn't impact me, when it impacts every moment of your life. So I think to be mindful is that you might be able to unplug, but I think we all need to get at least enough information from the right sources, for sure, so that you're informed enough because you can help yourself. But I think right now, as we've been learning, it's also really important to help people who do not have power at all.
Yeah,
And that's
totally.
on us too.
Yeah, that's a solid point. I'll just say, as a former news anchor and news junkie, I had to change the way that I consume news, because for a long time, I could sit there and I could consume all the news and I was fine. And then we had a pandemic, and then there was George Floyd, and then there was a war in Ukraine, and then I started to feel really overwhelmed. And starting my day with what happened overnight, that kind of like, I want to know what's going on, I realized I was coming to work and I was already really feeling very depressed. So I had to recently, especially with this new Donald Trump administration in January. Wow, you guys are really angry.
Yeah.
A lot of fans here today.
I realized that for my mental health, I had to change. I'm still tapped in, but I had to change when. I can't start the day with that, so it's later on in the afternoon, and I choose very carefully how much and where I get my information, so I'm in and I'm out.
You don't want to have your fingernails just digging into the couch
right?
all day,
Because I think it's too much, and I think a lot of people feel that way. During the pandemic, a lot of people who knew that I was anchoring the news at News Channel were like, I just can't watch anymore. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. And I'm like, no, I get it. I'm sitting there telling you how many people are infected and how many people died every hour on the hour.
Rough.
It was too much, and then it was just crisis after crisis. So I understand why people feel that way, but I think we all have to find that balance of just getting enough so you know what's going on, because I think as an adult, it's very bizarre for you not to know what's going on in the world, but also not overwhelming yourself where you're constantly freaking out like you were saying.
I also think I went old school a little bit. It's like I stopped being plugged into the 24-hour channel situation, which was always, I come from news also, and that it's a reaction. We kind of also thrive off of it a little bit. But
it's an addiction, right?
It's a bit of an addiction, but also I went back to watching the nightly news and let that be almost my only news for the day. So shout out CTV National News,
Omar Sachedina.
So because at least it's not the fire hose.
Yes.
It provides context. It gives me all the information that I need for the day, and I feel informed rather than starting the day with the fire hose on a thing called social media.
Yeah, and I think you can consume news with a critical eye too. Will help you if you just trust if you're listening to just one source and you're trusting it completely. Some things can come out of left field and you feel confused or conflicted. Whereas if you watch every piece of news with a little bit of a critical eye and keep some distance, then you can manage your emotions about it.
Digest it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, moving on. A Wall Street Journal article is asking, where have all the nicknames gone?
Yeah.
They say Calling a friend TJ, Curly, or Crazy Legs used to be a sign of affection, but now a fear of giving offense or sounding unprofessional has killed all that. So have we lost the art of a good nickname?
Listen, the Wall Street Journal needs to head to the Caribbean because it is a rite of passage. There are people that I have known for my entire life, and to this day, I don't know their government name. Tebow, Wario, turnip bags, I know those names don't mean anything to you, but those are people that I actually know where somebody said to me, what's their government name? I'd be like, I do not know. And it actually started with my dad, who I heard people calling my dad this nickname, and I was like, what's going on? And my dad's like, well, I was named after a homeless man. And I go, I'm sorry, what? Hear me out. My dad started a soccer club in Grenada called the Fontenoy. My dad's the one holding the sign, the Fontenoy United FC, right? But my dad had a bad habit that after practice or after a game, he would just pass out sleeping any and everywhere. I mean, on the pitch, near the net, anywhere. And his friends would make fun of him. And there was a homeless man in the town who would also fall asleep on the beach, against trees, everywhere. So his friends started to call him after that man, and that man's name was Benji. Right? So a lot of people know my dad as Benji. And not until my dad's funeral this past September, people came up to me and they're like, I did not know that your dad's name was Michael. Until his funeral, I thought your dad's name was Benji. And I'm like, welcome to being a Caribbean child.
Nicknames like, they seem insulting, right? But the meaner ones often have like more affection behind them.
Yes.
I'm reminded of this NBA player who's retired now. His name is Glenn Davis, and his nickname was Glenn Big Baby Davis. Oh. And it's because he kind of looked like a big baby. And he was so angry, he held a press conference where he's like, everyone stop calling me Big Baby. And it's like, that's how you solidify that your name is Big Baby. Also, Glenn Big Baby Davis, that sounds good.
Unless you're Glenn.
Unless you're Glenn.
Unless you're Glenn.
Better than Glenn. Come on,
Yeah.
Glenn.
You gotta just accept it.
I like a big and insulting one. My favorite nickname for myself, which was one of those nicknames where my friend and I called each other the same nickname, which was hag, which many people would find offensive. I think it's we need to reclaim the word hag because a hag is an old, wise woman.
We need the story. How did you end up calling each other hag?
We were belly dancers together. We were like dancers together for a long time. We traveled through Egypt together, and I think it was just this term of affection. Okay. There's a kind of haggy quality to us in the sense of like we would be sitting around like laughing and sharing secrets, and I think that there's like it's
like two old hags.
Yes, like two old hags. I mean that in the best way possible.
And now I just realized who you're talking about.
Oh yeah, she's your makeup artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, kids have not lost the art of nicknames. I think as adults we lose a sense of play in general. I'm very, very bad at it, but Marquesa has really, really great nicknames for everybody in her life. Like my sister is Rosanna, and she's Rosie Toes, which I thought that was really, really cute. Really cute. But my only nickname that I still use, I don't know if it's a nickname, because you guys know that I call Ryan Daddy.
Oh.
So
that's making us uncomfortable.
Is that different?
It's a little different. That's about
okay. Oh, sorry, that's for the next story after the break. Because after the break...
I wish we'd started with you, because I have so much to say about that, but I know we have to go to the break. But anyway, we're gonna go.
We cannot call your husband Daddy.
Oh my gosh.
You cannot call my husband Daddy.
You still call your dad Daddy, too. I've heard you on the phone.
Yes, I do.
This is hard to dissect
anyway,
right now.
We can't. We gotta go to a break.
We don't have enough time
wants us to rap so badly.
George Clooney said on CBS Mornings that after 10 years of marriage that he and wife Amal have never had an argument, which, yes, it has created this situation, raising some eyebrows in the audience and on this panel. Are we skeptical when couples say they do not fight?
Yeah, I don't buy it at all. I feel like, first of all, I feel like you can't have a very successful relationship if you don't have a fight and get over it and get through it. You gotta see people at their worst so you can have them at their best, right? And accept them at both ends. And also, when they say they don't fight, people who say they don't fight, you know they're walking around the house being like, "Do you take out the garbage? Because I did it last week." "No, I did it, okay, well then that's fine." Like they are fighting. It's just like, they don't raise their voice or they go into a weird tone or like weird posture.
Okay, so then therein lies the question, what exactly constitutes a fight? Because Ryan and I have been married for 17 years and we have not had a fight.
Boo! Boo!
Okay,
maybe
so wait, it works.
Maybe it's because you call him Daddy. Maybe.
You thought we were gonna drop that?
We don't fight, we do other things.
Was that Daddy? You were saying Daddy? You still saying Daddy?
Do you think?
Did you take out the garbage, Daddy? Because I did it last week. Just saying.
Have we disagreed? We have disagreed, but I think my definition is like throw them down, voices up, you're fighting, they're swearing, there could be things, to me, my definition of fighting is we just have never done that. Can we disagree on things? Yeah, we disagree. Like stop leaving the kitchen cupboards open, Ryan. Just close the kitchen cupboards.
That's a fight.
That's a fight.
I've never said that to him, but I've never said that to him.
You just did. But you just did.
But it sounded so natural when you did it. Like you had practice.
Like she'd said it before.
If I had to analyze that a little bit, if that's something that you are slightly, obviously is an issue that's there, maybe it's just that Ryan does, like when you mention it, he kind of tends to listen. I think the fight comes when two people start to meet each other where they're at. And my impression is maybe in this case that you get to go up and he just stays.
Ryan,
and that's why it never is a fight.
Maybe your daddy.
I hear what you're saying. Am I type A? Yes, I'm type A. But no, you bring up a good point. Ryan is the coolest customer on the planet. There's not a lot that gets Ryan riled up. Like nothing. He's so chill. This is why I'm saying if you're a firstborn type A, find yourself a lastborn. It's a match made in heaven. He's so chill.
Or he's got
nothing
this
I can
ball
do.
of resentment.
No.
But what of us middle children?
He doesn't.
Us middle children are left to fight with each other
But
to
you
the
guys
death.
fighting, do you fight?
Okay, I'm not comfortable with a person until I see all of their emotions. I need to see you sad, I need to see you happy, I need to see you angry, because that lets me know if you are the right person for me. So I need to get in a fight with you, as you're saying. I need to see what you do when you get really angry. How do you handle it? Because there's some people who don't handle their anger very well. And I know for me, that's the exit stage left. So when I hear you don't fight, I'm like, okay, how do two people who have children together, who are under the same roof all the time, with this very busy lifestyle, and you never disagree on one thing?
No, we disagree, we don't fight. I think there's a difference.
Okay, maybe, you know what, and you know what, maybe they're not disrespectful, because I don't like when people fight and they call each other those horrible names. For me, I'm like, let's not do that. But we can disagree and be like, well, I said and you didn't want to. That to me is like a disagreement, but I wouldn't call it a fight. I'm not into throwing things across the room and the disgusting name calling, talking
Slamming
about their
doors,
mama. Yeah, slamming doors. I'm not into that. To me, that feels very immature, especially as you become an adult. But it does feel like a weird thing to admit out in public. It's like, you guys disagree on something. You have kids. You're not going to agree on every single thing that you do, right?
Mathematically, there's had to be a fight somewhere.
We had one, okay, fine. We had one fight.
Oh, here it is.
Here it is.
Tell
No, you're
us.
gonna hate me. No, you're gonna hate me.
What is it about?
You guys are gonna say she is so annoying more than usual, okay? Here it is.
Are we fighting?
No, yeah, we are. The night before our wedding day, we had a fight about what was the music and DVD that we were gonna play at our wedding reception. It's the stupidest thing, but we were so stressed, not at each other. Wedding is stressful. And we were so stressed about things that other people were doing. And he's like, I want it to be Tony Bennett. And I said, I want it to be Frank Sinatra. And then we had a little bit of a fight about it. So there. Are you happy?
That was.
Are you happy?
To your credit, that was before you got married, technically, just by a hair.
I guess so. I
You
guess
said
so.
during your marriage.
Okay, there it is. I feel sufficiently ganged up on, so let's move on. Let's move on. Oh no, this is where I get to say, Miguel, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.